Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody that's joining us on this Thursday. My name's Richard Tucker. I'm the Business Development Director for EMEA, and on behalf of myself and the slightly more handsome Jameson Craig, who is the Business Development Director for North America, and the whole team at Quincus, I want to thank everybody for joining us on this 13th episode of the Quincus Talks. This is our first joint session that is a joint session between the UK and the US. So thanks to everybody that's attending. I'll let the moderators, our moderator and our fantastic panelists introduce themselves in a few moments. We're obviously here to talk about sustainability and how that is massively important to our supply chain, our planet, and obviously our lives. While green is takes an expensive part of our lives, of course, there are three key words that we need to examine: cost, disruption, and of course sustainability. So if we look at costs, of course, things such as how we measure that, visibility, the metrics of cost of those, essentially optimization, looking at how we save costs, certainly in today's climate, the demands from a customer within a supply chain, and having the right logistics technology in place to drive those efficiencies. Disruption, we've all seen disruption in the last 2 years, COVID being the top of that, of course, Brexit, if you're in the UK and Europe, fuel and energy costs, electronic components, which is ongoing, shipping costs, the rise in shipping costs, driver shortages, the issues in Russia, staffing costs, and it's how we react to those and those business critical decisions. And then obviously we've got the sustainability, and we're going to go into that in a lot more detail with our panelists. And it's how we work with our partners, how we look at our ecosystem practices, and we give those assurances to how our products are sourced, and therefore how we end up contributing to a happier planet. So we're going to move into our talk. It's with great pleasure that I pass you to our moderator, Lex. He's going to introduce himself, and of course he's going to introduce us to the panelists.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much, Richard. And thank you very much to everyone here joining, and especially to our panelists. My name is Lex. I have a podcast called Who's Saving the Planet, where we interview people that are fighting for a more sustainable future. And I'm the founder of United by Zero, a company that does sustainable scoring assessments for products for the consumer market. So let's go one by one and allow the panelists to introduce themselves. Elba, would you kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Elba Pareja-Gallagher. I work for UPS, as you can see, with my bright, kind of obnoxious background, ESG. My title is officially Sustainability Director of Stakeholder Engagement, and my role is to understand who our stakeholders are and create value for all of them. And only one of them is a shareholder, but we want to make sure that if we create value for all our stakeholders, our shareholders will certainly benefit. I've been at UPS for 25 years and only came over to sustainability about 1.5 years ago. And so formally, I took a path of finance. So I know we have a CFO on the call with us. So that was my area, which was finance and accounting for UPS all over the world. I lived in Asia for 3 years, held numerous assignments, and bringing my business acumen over to sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alba. Welcome aboard. Peter, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. Peter Louden. I'm the head of development for Wincanton in the UK. So we're the largest UK-owned third-party logistics company. We've got about 200 sites across the UK and Ireland, 20,000 people, and about 7,500 vehicles. So significant piece of surface area to cover. I'm new to Wincanton, about 3 months in, but I've spent about 35 years in the logistics sector, either as a network operator, a 3PL provider, or I've been on the retail side of things as well. So that's my background. But great to be involved. Thank you.
Welcome. Nick, you are up.
Thanks, Lex. My name is Nick Macaluso. I'm the CFO for Great Freight Logistics. We're based in the Phoenix, Arizona market. We're also a member of the Elite Global Logistics Network, which is part of the World Cargo Association. I've had 26 years in the industry. The majority of it has been through the operations side and station management and regional management. I left my big role with corporations back in 2017 to go something smaller to focus more on our customers and what's really important, which is taking care of the people that we work with. And that's what's founded this company and what we're based about. And that's what we're here to do today.
Okay, fantastic. Welcome aboard. So we have UPS, Wincanton, and Great Freight. Those are three companies that work in very different markets, have different sizes and different types of incentive structures, regulatory issues, and obviously the ability to affect change, because the bigger you are, the more opportunity you have. So let's start there. Elba, UPS has a dedicated goal of reaching carbon neutrality by 2050. Can you tell us what you guys are going to do to achieve that?
Sure. Love to talk about sustainability and our goals. And in fact, I will let your audience know that we are about to launch our next sustainability report. So the one that's out there publicly would have been with our 2020 data that was published in 2021. And now at the early part of June, we'll be publishing our 21 data report, which will be issued now in 2022. So in last year's report, we did launch our carbon neutral goals. So it was very exciting. It required a lot of thoughtful evaluation. Before I tell you how we're going to achieve it, or sort of what our roadmap and what our priorities are, I think it's important to talk about our why, sort of our North Star, and why we elected the path that we did. And so I want to leave the audience with really these 5 critical points to know UPS and what matters and why we chose the goals that we did. Number 1 is to lead with integrity. Number 2 is a holistic vision of sustainability. You know, just like I represent all stakeholders, right? That's the idea. It's holistic, and we can't just be one-sided one way or another. Deliver impact, not just promises, is number 3. Number 4 is we want to find a way to de-link growth of our business from greenhouse gas emissions. And what I mean by that is that over time, you know, we're growing, we're delivering more and more, and our greenhouse gases are growing at the same rate as our revenue and volume growth. And we need to find a way to separate that so we can continue to grow with lower carbon footprint. So that is part of our rationale for our goals as well. And then the last one, I mentioned in my introduction that I am formerly in finance, so this is particularly meaningful to me. We take a fiscally responsible approach based on sound engineering principles. We've been in business for 115 years. We started as an engineering company, and we remain steadfast in making sure we have a solid approach to operations, because customers first, and we need to make sure we're delivering our packages on time. So the key ways we're going about achieving our carbon neutrality goal by 2050 is another set of 5: network efficiency and innovation, sustainable aviation fuel procurement, electrification of our fleet, greater use of renewable fuels, and then renewable electricity. And so those kind of are the 5 ways that we're going to hit our targets.
Okay, great. I'm really glad that you brought up integrity at the top. I think that's like incredibly important. Recently, the New Climate Institute and the Carbon Market Watch, which are nonprofit organizations that look at the claims that big companies made, they released a report. And they looked at 25 of the biggest companies that have made this claim for net neutrality in 2040 or 2050. And they found that the integrity that those companies had ranked from very low to moderate. Now, UPS was not one of these companies, so I am sure that your integrity and reward would be at the top of that scale. But I think what this illustrates is that it's very hard for companies to align the incentive structures for real-time decision makers making business choices with the overarching goals of the company that they've stated to become more sustainable. So how is UPS creating intermediary benchmarks that are measurable and then creating accountability structures so that the people making those decisions understand what their incentives and their consequences are for either hitting or missing those goals?
By the way, Lex, I have to tell you that I love that report by the New Climate Institute. So I read it thoroughly. I think that's what we need. I'm a former finance person, right? So I know about accountability. Yeah, so what we've done is, I'm pretty proud of what we're doing in terms of accountability and the structure that we've created. For our intermediate goals, we have broken it out into a couple of time tranches. So by 2025, we're going to have all of our ground operations, the fuel used will be alternative fuel, 40% of it. So 40% alternative fuel in our ground operations. And also by 2025 is 25% renewable electricity in our facilities. So those are our two interim targets for 2025. For 2035, it's 30% of our jet fuel is going to be sustainable aviation fuel SAF, and then a 50% reduction in CO2 per package using a 2020 baseline. And also by 2035, 100% renewable electricity in our facilities. And so, one way for accountability to make sure we can get to the end point is to have these steps in the middle. The mechanisms that we're using to hold ourselves accountable and create value for our stakeholders is, number one, we created these goals and discussed them internally amongst the entire functional group. So at the highest management levels, we are all in agreement that this is what we're going to pursue. The board approves our goals. So when you want to talk about the G in ESG, right, board governance, they are also accountable with us. The CEO, Carol Tomei, who incidentally, we just had an earnings report this week. So you should check that out if you want to hear directly from Carol, her comments around our performance. And a couple of times she did mention our ESG environmental goals. But Carol has publicly stated that ESG is important to UPS and that we're committed. So it starts at the top, right? We have a formal sustainability council made up of senior executive leaders, and we meet quarterly to go through where are we on the roadmap to those interim targets and the end goal as well. And lastly, our international teams also have their own sustainability councils that funnel in and ensure that they're achieving their goals based on their geographical constraints and specifications.
Okay, we're gonna let you off the hot seat for a minute here, but thank you for that, Elba. Peter, let's go to the UK for a minute. Wincanton, you guys have recently said that you have adopted an opportunity for your customers to have net zero deliveries for home deliveries. And I would love to learn a little bit more about like what that means and why did you decide to do that and how are you executing on it?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify a little bit, it's actually carbon neutral deliveries. And we've got, as I say, a large number of vehicles, lot of surface area. Our preference would be for decarbonisation rather than carbon offset, which is what we're doing. So, but the infrastructure isn't where it needs to be, certainly in the UK. Now, things are accelerating. So in the areas where we can have much more purchase, things like company cars are now either hybrid or electric, in terms of any new car that comes onto the fleet. So we've got much more control over that connection to the infrastructure. But then what we've done is we've arranged a carbon offset for all of our two-man home deliveries. Again, the technology is not there in terms of, these are large trucks, these are large radial trucks going to people's homes, delivering furniture, white goods, etc. So with that comes a unique set of challenges in terms of alternative fuels and electrification. So we're across all of that, but in the meantime, we're using a partner to help us with those offset arrangements.
That is the Wincanton Woodland.
Well, it's partly that. I mean, the woodland is part of the offset arrangement, but we also arrange credits that we consume against the deliveries. We do about, in that particular sphere, just under 2 million deliveries a year. So all of those are offset, and we fund that ourselves. We don't pass it on to customers or consumers in any way. That's coming out of our pocket to play an early part in our trajectory in that direction. But yeah, and if any credits aren't used, then we'll roll them into the following year. But that's part of the woodland is part of it.
I think it's really important that you mentioned that you're working with carbon credits, but you're trying to actually decarbonize your own operations, because the carbon credit markets right now are they are a lot, and there's a lot of different opinions about how much those credits are actually doing to reduce our overall greenhouse gas emissions and the incentive structure. And a lot of that has to do with how you're measuring it, because the more you can trust those measurements, the more you can actually certify the environmental effects of buying the offsets. So what are you guys doing to make sure that when you are using those carbon offsets, they're being measured properly and everyone's held accountable all the way through?
Well, we're outsourcing that to a partner. So rather than try and do that ourselves, that's there's a PAS standard, isn't there? I think it's 2060 that in terms of, you have to work to that standard. That's not our specialist area. So we've given that off to a partner who give us the assurance and the independence that we are measuring it in the right way, rather than it's somebody within the business who's making those calculations.
Yeah. It's so important to be able to do that, and it's an incredibly complicated thing as well. Are you guys going to also start actually bringing it closer to home and having some of those tree planting operations or carbon offsets around your base of operations?
Yeah, the first one is Uganda, and then in Cumbria, which is in the northwest of England, then that's the next woodland that's planned. So yes, it's nice to be able to put it into other countries and take advantage there, but also we're doing exactly what you just described, which is bring it closer to home, and that'll be part of a whole strategy, a multi-year strategy in that area.
Yeah. Nick, how is it in Arizona right now? It's early over there.
Yeah, we're approaching on 100 degrees here soon, Lex. So we're about to cross that threshold, and we'll be over that for 90 to 120 straight days. So getting ready for that the sweat period, I call it.
Yeah. Well, welcome to that. So you guys are obviously at a different scale from some of these larger multinational corporations. And so you have to work with a lot of logistics partners to achieve your overall goals. How are you picking those partners, and what basis are you using, sort of a sustainability metric, to decide who you're going to work with?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic that we have, because I think supply chain, when people look at supply chain as a whole, it's such a robust term because it covers so many different areas. And a lot of people get lost in the piece that I do, which is a third party non-asset based, right? So there's a lot of dependency on what we do from folks like UPS, like Elba's group, right? For us, it's a tricky scenario because we can only control what we can control. And the accountability piece really comes into play and makes it complicated when you're doing vendor processing, right? So with all the capacity issues that we have in the marketplace as a whole today, it really makes it tricky when you're going out and trying to find asset-based transportation providers that are meeting any kind of EPA standards whatsoever. We do have a process in place today because we do have a customer base that's pretty thick in EPA type standards. And we can get into a little bit of that later. But for us to go out and procure our transportation piece from the other vendors, we do have some requirements on there to meet our customers' demands as it relates to different EPA standards. So we have a typical vendor setup form process. Within that form, and especially we'll just talk about trucking companies since that's really the majority of what we would be referring to here. We do have some different clauses in there asking them, hey, what are you doing as it relates to EPA standards? And in the United States, we're so close to California. California's got some very heavy restrictions, I'll say, to meet different EPA standards. For us in Arizona, it's a little more loose. They don't have as many requirements, but we have so much transportation going back and forth with California that we do have to meet these things. So a lot of the trucks have to be beyond a certain year. They have to meet different emission standards. there's different qualities with different states within the United States that they have to fall into. Our biggest challenge is, as a market, as a supply chain market in terms of transportation, there really isn't a whole lot of attention around this topic just yet. So we're trying to get a little bit ahead of the curve, since we have so many EPA-based type customers that want to see the transportation world meeting those requirements, and we're trying to meet their needs as we go. So it's a growth in process. In collaborating with our customers, going back and forth and choosing our carriers and our transportation management folks that we're utilizing. It's really in conjunction with them to make sure that we're meeting the requirements that they have, and then establishing ours as we go, because this is an ever evolving change in our market in general, and we have to continue to meet and adjust to that as we go.
Do you think your customers are making choices based on sustainability, or is it just a pricing metric?
So I wouldn't say they're 100% doing that, Lex, to be honest with you, but they do take it into consideration. It's the same for me. Is a person who comes in and we have a capacity strain, and this person has no EPA restrictions whatsoever. Are we going to work with them? Possibly. We don't have the luxury to just say, hey, sorry, I'm not going to work with you because you don't have proper EPA standards. It gets really tricky here because capacity is so limited. Our customers are doing a better job of it. It's just difficult to find those vendors that are meeting their requirements.
Yeah, logistics by and large, it's unit economics. Well, you guys can tell me what it is, but I went to business school, so I can only be a danger to myself when it comes to talking about finance. So I'll leave that to you. But it's largely a unit economics game, and there's always downward pricing pressure from the large multinational corporations that can compete at scale that a small business like yours can't. However, you get to be nimble, and you get to win on customer service and try things and create this sense of a brand development that you're going to be better because you're closer to the customers. So when is the last time that you have made a decision that maybe didn't make business sense, but you were following your values or your intuition about what you think those customers are going to care about?
Every single day, Lex, every single day. You just hit the nail on the head. The nimble approach that we have, that's what sets us apart from the big guys. Customers become numbers for a lot of the big corporations out there. And for me, having grown up in that environment, working for a major corporation, one of the largest in the world at the time, they lose sight and they lose the ability to flex and meet these customers' demands, especially around this topic in general. We do have the flexibility, and we do have the care and the relationship with these customers to help them meet their goals. And that's really what it comes down to, honestly, Lex. If a customer is trying to meet certain requirements so that their vendor base and their customer base is satisfied and happy, we just have to try to help them get to that point, right? A lot of the big guys, they're not going to do that right now, and it's just, they just don't have the flexibility that we have to make those maneuvers. So literally every single day, if we're paying more, or if we're having to use somebody that just, it's going to make the customer happy, but it's not going to make our bottom line happy, we'll make that decision, because for us, we want to make sure that these customers understand we're in this business for them, not for other folks.
Well, we have a big guy here. Elba, what do you think? How are you able to respond to that kind of, like, you have shareholders, you have to do quarterly reports. There's a massive decision tree structure to actually get anything done. How do you operate within those confines to still deliver the kind of personal service, and specifically around holding yourself accountable and making people believe that you're going to do the things you say? I think you may be on mute.
You are right. I was going to jump on this because it is such a complex issue when you're balancing the needs of all the stakeholders. As a finance person, before I came to sustainability, I just had this tunnel vision. It's like, this is what I'm here to do, right? It's to make sure we're achieving our financial goals. And I've studied some different ways of thinking, and I love this new concept of the power of A-N-D, the power of and, right? And it's like, it doesn't have to be just winners and losers. We have to find ways to find more winners, to make every situation a winning choice for everyone. And what that requires is innovation, creativity, and agility, and pushing the workforce to find a way to do it all, both make the customer happy, and make money and have the employees happy, right? And the communities, all stakeholders. So I think you've got to push people to embrace the power of and.
How do
Go
you
ahead,
do that
Lex.
if you're beholden to the market? So like at what point is a company that's at that size willing to say, I'm going to sacrifice short-term profits for this idea that we need to incorporate all of the stakeholders in this conversation?
Yeah, I think we can't, that's the kind of thinking we have to abolish, this sacrificing concept. There is none of that. What it means is you have to go back and try harder and find a solution that works. Electrification is a great way to talk about that. When you think about our fleet, which is ginormous, just our delivery fleet is like 130,000 vehicles. And guess what? Most of them are not the kind you can go buy at the, dealership. These class 4 and class 6 vehicles are our primary vehicles for delivering packages. You cannot buy one that fits our duty cycle requirements globally. We have to make it, right? And so that's where we entered into this partnership with Arrival, who is creating purpose-built vehicles just for us. And it is super complicated, but we had to keep asking, well, they're not available, so what are we going to do, right? We can't give up. And that's an example of having to make difficult decisions. But back to integrity and back to making fiscally responsible decisions, we also can't go buy vehicles that haven't been properly tested. I just got off a call the other day. Our number one priority is ensuring that the network is running flawlessly and our customers are receiving the goods that they need, including so much in healthcare today that we're serving. And so that's our priority. But it can be done, but it might go slower. Back to the process, the concept of, our 5, North Star, right? Leading by integrity and not just making promises, but actually delivering impact, right? So we have to be real, and that's what we're doing.
I had the chance to talk with the president of Arrival earlier this week, and he's thrilled about working with you. So just
hey, can I have a picture? I had the opportunity with UPS to go to Expo 2020 in Dubai, where we were featuring our Arrival vehicles and also another type of electric delivery vehicle, which is by a company called Fernhay. It's called an E-quad, and these are like souped up bicycles that enable you to still carry packages in the back, but they're powered through a bicycle. So I could share a picture if you all want to see.
I think that's up to the fine people at our host.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I only have a limited amount of power here, Elba. I'm really just
no problem. Anyway, the point is that, yeah, the Arrival relationship is terrific, and we are plowing forward to making it, operationalizing it to make it work. So we expect to get about 400 of those vehicles by the end of this year. So we've been doing, sort of alpha testing, and we're ready to move on to bigger testing. So, and then the rest of the vehicles will just start coming on.
Yeah, Arrival's actually based in the UK, Peter. I'm sure you're familiar with them. They're also working on light vehicles, buses, and potentially cars for Uber and what have you. You guys are electrifying your fleet from the car standpoint. Are you also going to be moving into the light heavy duty trucks, the sort of the ones that can be more expensive, they sit idle longer, the use cases is more, they get beat up every way from Sunday? When are those going to all be electric?
Yeah, most of our vehicles. Sorry, was that for me, Lex?
That was to you, Peter. But I love Elba's enthusiasm to jump in on that, and so we can talk about when UPS is going to go all electric next. But
go for it, Peter.
Yeah, sure. We've got plans to do all of those things. The number one issue at the moment is range. So we have our home delivery vehicles, which are typically heavier and need a heavy payload because they're carrying large furniture, heavyweight goods, barbecues, etc. But then the majority of our fleet is actually in the sort of the truck side of things. So you'd refer them to something else in the US, but essentially what we need to see is significant advances either in hydrogen or in electrification across those particular vehicle fleets. That's what's going to benefit us. Our major focus is around efficiency So what we've done is we've set up a central operations team. So instead of having each division running its own transport arrangements, we have one group transport operation that sits over the top, with the aim of shared use, with the aim of looking at synergies between networks, running vehicles across 24 hours, etc. So that's our short-term position. Our medium-term position is we're pushing the manufacturers and the partners to come up with the sort of kit that we need. Just going back to your stakeholder point, you know, there's the sort of concepts of the triple bottom line, you know, people, profit, planet. We're finding that we're a PLC and our non-execs, our shareholders are pushing this as in very much more in the direction of sustainability. If you go back 30 or 40 years, health and safety was sort of out there as a bit of an issue. Now it's the #1 item on the agenda of any board meeting, any team meeting, etc. And so sustainability is coming up the ranks very quickly for similar sorts of reasons. But it's the difference is, from my point of view, that consumers have a much closer, more accurate lens on us as organizations. You go back some way, people, you know, we operated, things turned up at the door, people didn't really know, you know, what went on. But now the transparency of, you know, how people see their own workplace, how people see the providers of their goods, you know, what turns up at the door is all gathered much more scrutiny from the consumer. And so therefore it can't be ignored. You need to show yourself as a responsible, safe and sustainable employer.
It's going to take all three. It's going to take pressure from the consumers. It's going to take downward pressure from the markets and your shareholders and what have you. And it's also going to take some kind of government cooperation or incentive structure. And you guys in the UK just went through, especially as a logistics company, you need to take things into and out of your country. How has the transition from going into the EU to not affected your ability to like push forward these other initiatives around sustainability that are important to your consumers, but are perhaps hampered by the logistical constraints that you need to adapt to this rapidly changing environment you're in?
I'll be honest with you, Lex, it's been awful. You know, we had a long run into it, which we were always almost in denial about. And then a lot of the infrastructure, governmental infrastructure, imports, exports, we weren't in place. So we've had to sort of live hand to mouth through a lot of those exercises. So, you know, we've set up separate teams, separate departments who are overcoming those on behalf of customers, but it's not been great. And it's also accentuated, you know, just simple decisions about how to what your disposition routes are for goods that are no longer sort of in season or whatever. Whereas previously there'd be European markets for what you call grey goods for some of our customers, then it's just not worth it anymore. So even simple decisions are being hampered by what we've gone through. So, you know, I'm not going to nail my political colours to the mast, but it's not been good, and we're still suffering from it.
Is there a way that you could galvanize the people that you work with to help sort of affect a better change or a better environment to sort of make that case? Because I feel like a lot of times it's hard for people to understand the ramifications of decisions that are made at the top level. And if you can say like, hey, listen, your stuff takes longer to get to you and it's more expensive because of that, that is something that perhaps people would understand as a real world effect.
It's a really good point, actually. It crosses over into lots of other areas that we have where we need to have a more honest conversation with consumers about what things cost, how things work, and how urgent things really are. In the UK, we've got absolutely seduced by faster and faster delivery. You know, next day delivery is the norm here. And actually now you can get groceries in 20 minutes and you get, you know, and actually it's in some ways it's unnecessary, but that's also been aligned to a sort of compulsion for free delivery or free returns. So those things have sort of pushed the whole economy in a specific direction. And yet those same consumers who want it there in a very short space of time want you to act in a more sustainable way. A more sustainable way is actually to flatten out the peaks and troughs in the week, just very simply. You know, Elba would sort of, you know, concur with that view. You don't want a very busy Tuesday because you've had a busy weekend. So there needs to be a much more honest conversation that sustainability is not just about the green credentials. It's actually about behaving in a way that makes the thing more coherent, more more sustainable.
There's nothing more expensive than trying to educate your customers. And so the idea of trying to do that and do it in a way that is concerted enough to be able to have an ROI at some point and like prove that out is a massive challenge. Nick, Elba mentioned something before, which I wanted to put into your context about how do you grow while not sacrificing some of the more like the sustainable initiatives, the things that you want to commit to as a company for all the stakeholders that we have. So if you're thinking about how are you going to take this company and earn more market share over the next 3-5 years, how do you balance that with the cost of growing very quickly with sacrificing some of the more like moralistic arguments?
Yeah, I don't think it's an easy situation or answer to really to get to that, Lex, but you're right, it's a challenge. And for us, we're banking essentially on the fact that as this economy grows and as we talk more about sustainability in a marketplace, you know, we want to be out in front of it. You know, today within our industry, really UPS and DHL are really the only two that are known to have any kind of sustainability program in place that's active. So as a small guy, and we're a small player, you know, we want to be able to get out in front, and who knows, maybe one day we'll be talking again 5-10 years from now, we won't be the small guy, we'll be a bigger guy because of these actions that we're taking for sustainability, right? Our customer base being heavy within that, you know, we've seen more advances on the supply chain side for sustainability as they continue to make their changes to packaging and they continue to make their different efficiency changes to better impact the environment on their side. They start coming to folks like us and saying, hey, what can you do to help, right? We want to be in a position to flex and bend with them because we're going to learn what they need by them telling us. I can't just go out and assume that, oh, hey, they're going to want me to operate an electric truck tomorrow. You know, I don't know that. But if they can share that information with me and we're in a position to then meet those requirements, that's our plan at this moment, is to take our discussions with our customers, get into the weeds a little bit about it, find out what it is that we can do to help them meet the goals that they have. And by doing that, we will be meeting goals and setting new standards for the future. So hopefully that makes sense what I'm saying. But, you know, really, we're looking for our customers. Tell me what it is that you need me to do to help you reach your goals. And by doing that, I think we'll be able to set some standards.
Yeah, the two parts about that I think are important. The responding to the customer saying, what do you need and how can I do that? And the second is engaging in a conversation, like Peter was saying, to sort of like help them understand what your constraints are and how they can be an active participant in achieving, you know, it's easy to say I want to be sustainable. It's hard to actually make choices that are going to lead you down that path to get there.
And that comes back to accountability, right, Lex? I mean, there really isn't any accountability out in the marketplace that I'm aware of at the moment. And again, I've been doing this a while.
I don't think anyone's aware of any accountability, which is like truly superseding other more prevalent forces.
But it's going to have to be some self-accountability at some point, right? And accountability from the customer to their vendor. So, you know, we want to be in a position to not be held accountable, but to fix that accountability issue by setting some standards.
Yeah. Elba, are you back with us? Okay. I want to then switch over to Peter. When the idea, one of the things that you're doing is offering these incentives for your customers, these ability for your customers to go carbon neutral. How are you also incentivizing them to do that? And is there a way that you can create sort of a partnership with them so that they can get some sort of benefit from doing it that like improves either their relationship with you as a company, so it's more of a brand play, or like a direct incentive that's easier for them to understand why they should do that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's not as adversarial as needing as an incentive, to be honest with you. Many of our customers are actually pulling us in that direction. So yes, we're trying to take the initiative ourselves to be a responsible organization. But we've got lots and lots of, we've got about 100 customers, and lots of them are getting exactly the same sort of pressure from, you know, their own conscience, their own stakeholders, their own customer base. So incentivizing them is almost not necessary. It's more the sequence of events, the sorts of things that we can do. You know, look at packaging. You know, we're sending out probably 160 million packages a year on behalf of our customers. Our ability to take best practice and good ideas from customer number 75 and moving it to number 23 is part of our gift. It's part of the sort of the continuous improvement initiatives, the sort of, the quality initiatives that we have within the business. So that's what they look to us for on a regular basis. At a purely commercial level as well, some of our contracts encompass gain share arrangements. So, we'll take a contract on, you'll implement it successfully, but then you're looking for joint initiatives, which are not necessarily profit making. They are beneficial. Now, beneficial can be sustainable initiatives rather than cash generative. And they're looking for us to do all of those things. And we're winning business, and people are tendering business on the basis of those credentials. They want to know what you're going to do. So the incentive sort of comes our way, which is if we want to grow our business, and we do, and we want to be, a successful organization, we have to present our case studies, our best practice to new and existing customers to keep them interested.
Customers are hard. And so figuring out what they need and how to deliver to them in the right way is super difficult. You mentioned something before that perhaps is a little bit more direct, which is technology. At least we can get our hands around that, and that hydrogen would be a big, what would be, if there was one single technological thing that is on the precipice, but it has not yet been achieved, that would really be able to affect both the sustainability and the business goals simultaneously to sort of align those incentives? Is there any one thing that you're like, this is what we are pushing for to see in the next 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah, I think the scale of our fleet is so vast that it has to be around either electrification or hydrogen vehicles. Now, we don't think that's 2, 3, 4 years. We think that's some way beyond that. In terms of other initiatives, we then look at waste, what we do on waste. We also look at what we do on from a property point of view, warehousing point of view.
Yeah. What about you, Nick? Is there anything from your perspective? Arizona is very different from the UK. It's about to be 90 degrees there. I presume it's rainy where you are, Peter. So what about from you?
Yeah, I think Peter was right. I think for the transportation side of the world to really start making some sustainable progress, is going to really come around the development of the electric tractor trailer and the ability and the range for those, right? Let's be honest, today they're expensive. It's and the range is just not there to really have a large impact on our environment at the moment. The price of these trucks and how far they can go, it just doesn't fit well into a truckload environment or any kind of ground transportation environment. Maybe in Peter's case, where you got a lot of local deliveries going on, you could probably blend some of that in there. But here in the United States, you're talking about over the road truckers. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But if somebody would put some focus behind that and really start building the fact that if we can get more electric tractor trailers on the road that have a larger range, I think we'll naturally see this stuff start changing. But until we get there and until that price comes down to something that's affordable, it's going to be a tough road.
Nick, just to touch in on that, I think what is encouraging is the speed of electrification of cars. Certainly, we see it in UK. We thought it was a bit of a quirk, a bit of a gimmick. Actually, it's really, really taking off. It's unbelievable, the speed of it. So if that converts into the truck world, then we can be encouraged by that.
Totally agree.
Hey, Lex, I just wanted to let you know, can you hear me? I'm back on by phone.
Yes, welcome in.
Yeah, hey, so I'm so sorry. I don't know what has happened to my computer, but it malfunctioned. So
that's okay.
But listen, I wanted to weigh in on that point. I heard you all talking about what would be that one thing that you need. And for us, we need infrastructure related to the charging infrastructure. So it's not just the equipment itself, but then the operation of it and having enabling, the charging infrastructure, for the grid, for the internal facilities, I think that needs work.
Well, in this country, that also relies on the government spending a bunch of money, because whenever we've seen things like that need to happen at scale, you need to have investment that is not necessarily, within the profit matrix of the companies themselves to do that, because it just can't happen quickly enough. So how do you think UPS is focusing on saying, these are the things that we need? We need not only private businesses to invest in those, but we need to influence the government to make those investments as well, because it's going to benefit everyone. And in theory, that is what a government should do. So how are you exercising your influence to see those goals realized?
Yeah, we are very active. You know, we have a very large public affairs division, people who are on the street, feet on the ground across the states and internationally to collaborate with legislators to find solutions to make these innovations scalable, because that's the only way we're going to be able to accelerate getting to net zero. And so we really approach it from two angles. One is what I described from the public affairs and legislative angle. And then we're also very involved with leading NGOs and other industry organizations to collectively, you know, impact legislative changes and incentives that enable this to be affordable and economically viable. So, for example, we work with the World Economic Forum's Clean Skies for Tomorrow, Smart Freight Center Clean Cargo Working Group, World Resources Institute, of course, the A4A, you know, at UPS. A bigger part of our footprint is air emissions. And, you know, we're talking about electric vehicles as a solution for ground, but there is no electric airplane right now, so that can handle all the cargo. So we work intensely trying to build a bridge between producers and buyers of sustainable aviation fuel, for example, to scale that. And we've got to work together, because this cannot be solved by just individual entities or corporations.
I'm very long blimp technology, because I feel like blimps can really get us there with a slower but less intensive way to transport things. All right, we're gonna wrap this up here. We have one question from the audience, which I believe, Peter, you did address. So if that question has been satisfactorily addressed, I'm gonna move on to sort of a closing question. Nick, if you were running UPS, what would be the first thing that you would do?
Are we talking from a sustainability standpoint, I'm assuming?
That is definitely the lens with which we're looking through things. With
that kind of purchasing power and footprint that they have, I would imagine that this is going to be more of a legislative approach. So if it was me, I'd probably lean on as many of the congressmen and senators, especially in the United States, that you can, to start having these conversations, because what Elba brought up about the infrastructure is spot on. It's not there. So UPS will be limited to a certain degree on how far that they can progress their ability to continue their sustainability improvements. For me, that's going to become a legislative issue. They need to get in front of Congress, in front of the Senate, and we need to have changes that come across as law.
Elba, if you then could also galvanize all of the smaller suppliers that you guys work with, what would be, if you were sort of master of the world of all of them, how would you want to work in partnership with them in a way that maybe you don't right now?
I think what I love is what I call roadmap collaborations, where you get in a room and you come in with an open mind and willingness to be transparent and come up with some solutions and some ideas to work together. I think that is something that's missing, particularly, the whole scope 3 conversation with your downstream and upstream suppliers. We really have to get closer to each other, get to know each other, and create the environment where we can innovate together. So I think we need more collaboration and more transparency between, the big companies and the suppliers.
Okay, I think the boss is back in. So Richard, are we out of time now?
No, I was just coming into just to close off. You can ask Peter who he's going to make changes to, of course.
Sure, Peter, if you were elected prime minister tomorrow, what would be the first thing that you would do?
Oh my God, that's a question, Peter. Prime Minister of the UK, yeah?
More bank holidays.
Yeah, more bank holidays. Yeah.
Okay, Richard, it's your show.
All right. Well, I just wanted to thank everybody. Lex, thank you for moderating. All the guests, Peter, Elba, Nick, thank you for attending. We're also going to send out the recording. Elba, I heard you kindly offer to send us or share some pictures. We'd love to send those out with the recording. So if you could send those pictures of your futuristic vehicles, we'd love to be able to send those out to the audience.
Okay. Good deal.
Yeah, so we'll send those out with a copy of this recording. It's been great. We've had some great discussions. Thanks to everybody who's joined this session. It's been absolutely fantastic. Again, it's been a fantastic 50-minute conversation. And Lex, thanks for moderating, and all those that have joined the session. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your afternoons, evenings, or day, depending where you are in the globe.
Thank you
guys.
so much,
Richard.
and apologies
All
for
right.
this technical difficulty.
Yeah, and thanks for dialing back in on the phone. Take care.
Okay. Have a
Take care.
great
Bye.
day, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.